Okay, welcome from the UK to our panel of UK importers looking at the UK market. My name is Richard Siddle. I'm co-founder of The Buyer, which is a online platform, which is today all about, really. It's all about linking producers with buyers and helping them get listings in restaurants, bars and retailers. That's kind of essentially what The Buyer is all about. So great to be involved in the bloody big drink summit. What a great name for a forum. So well done for that. So the next 45 minutes, the plan is to give you an insight into what the situation is like in the UK at the moment and give you some real practical expertise advice from four of the leading players in the UK market about how you might go about getting your wines listed here. But just before we do that, just to sort of set the scene, I mean, clearly Australia is perhaps a little bit behind in terms of coming out of the COVID situation than the UK. We have actually fortunately been able to open up the entree for most of the summer. Travel is open again, and for best parts of our life, things are pretty much back to normal. But that doesn't necessarily mean everything's normal when it comes to buying and selling wine. We're in a strange situation in that on the one hand, you hear people talking about unprecedented demand, amazing sales, people just buying incredible amounts of wine and trading up. And then on the other hand, you've got people coming off furlough, losing their jobs, lots of restaurants and bars struggling to find staff, incredibly difficult situations around supply, getting wine into the market, around the market. And we're currently in the UK having a petrol and energy situation, which is having a massive another impact on our supply chain. So we're in a very strange position at the moment whereby the doors are open and we're all ready to do business, but there are quite a few hurdles in the way which people are having to navigate as well. So it's worth bearing that in mind when you're looking at the UK to put that into context and to understand the internal market issues that there may well be here for where you might well then fit in. The good news is we have a massively vibrant market and we have wines from all over the world. And obviously, as you will know, Australia and New Zealand is one of the two of the most important categories, one for size, volume and major share, and the other for selling premium wines and actually having the highest priced wines in the UK market. So those are the plus points. And to help me explore and explain the UK market in a bit more detail and a bit more expertise, if I could introduce our panel. And that our panel today are four different types of importers who arguably are the most influential and important people in the sector. Even if I'm not just saying that to make them feel good, but ultimately they are responsible for deciding which wines go onto their lists. And it's their list that restaurants, retailers, supermarkets, wine merchants are then going to put into their businesses. So they really are the gatekeepers. They really are incredibly important, and understanding how they think and work is absolutely key to success in the UK. So can I introduce Kim Wilson, who's the Managing Director of North South Wines. Nice to have you on board, Kim.
Thank you. Hello to everybody, and thank you for having me.
Very good, yeah. We have David Cartwright, who's the Sales Director of Seckford Wine Agencies. So good to see you, Chief.
Thanks for having me on, Richard. Appreciate it.
Always good. Matt Johnson from a new wine business. It started up last summer from Beyond Wines. Good to have you, Matt. You all right?
Nice to be here, Richard. Thank you.
And Jamie Wynne-Griffiths, who has started a new wine business, a new model actually, over the last few months, importing wines into the UK. So what I thought I'd do is I ask them now to perhaps just give an idea of how their business is run and talk about their business models. Because I say the key thing about the UK is there are so many different routes to market. There's not just one way to get a listing. So perhaps Kim, if I come to you first, if you wouldn't mind just talking through North South Wines for us.
Yeah, no problems. So I'll try and keep it as concise as ever because I can rattle on a bit. But so North South Wines, we're 7 years old. When we set the business up, the market was in a funny kind of place. There was a lot of consolidation happening. So we really looked at like what was going to be a model that would create longevity for us and that would be fit for the future and anything that might come across it. 7 years ago, I had no idea that we'd be in a global pandemic and where we are at the moment. But in that 7 years, we've managed to build the business to 1.5 million 9-litre cases. We do an annual turnover around 31 million. I've got 25 team members. And we genuinely are a multi-channeled business. So when we set the business up, we didn't want to just put all our eggs in one basket with one particular trade channel. It was very much about making sure that we could build a model that was going to be future-proofed. So we genuinely are that true multi-channeled market. And that has paid massive dividends to us with what's happened with coronavirus. So big things that obviously have changed from us is going from having like an online function to having something that is so important to us now and a huge part of the business. But likewise, the on-trade side of things that accounts for like 20% of our business, that pretty much stopped overnight, and we still had 80% of the business that we could continue working with. But likewise, we diversified in that on-trade side of things, that a lot of wholesalers would be doing deliveries directly to consumers and started to do online models. So we supported where we could there. So our model is that from a route to market point of view, we work directly with everybody. And from an on-trade point of view, we only work through wholesalers. So we don't go direct to restaurants. And then the final bit to really talk about our model that is slightly different, that is probably interest to some of the people that will be watching this, is that we are part producer owned. So I have 3 winery shareholders that own 48% of my business between them. And one of those is De Bortoli Wines. I'm sure everybody that is watching on here will be well aware of what they do. And that was amazing for us because it really gave us that kind of direct route to market, and for particularly the bigger customers to feel that they were working more directly, but also for somebody like De Bortoli to be able to have a real handle on what the market's doing and work directly with us. So we have the 3 winery shareholders. So we have one from Italy, Stefano Girelli with the Wine People, and Ray Kenderman from Germany, and then De Bortoli. And then we work with around 25 other wineries on either a distribution or agency agreement. So I think that's everything that I've covered in a snapshot.
Excellent, great. Well, we'll come back to you and talk a bit more about how that actually works in practice. David, can you talk us through Seckford for us?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Very impressive to hear Kim's amazing story there, which she knows I admire greatly. So Seckford was set up about 20 years ago by Pippa Woods. I think most people watching would know Pippa. She first went to Australia in the sort of mid-80s. I think she had a contact book and obviously no mobile phones then, so she sort of, on a 6-week diploma, having won the diploma prize, went around just basically ringing up people at Henschke and the like and just making appointments, and set the business up for Seckford 20 years ago. I've been there 7 years. The original prospectus would be a one-stop shop for, well, we might call it New World, probably better to say long haul, for New World or long haul countries, so that the indie shopper, the indie trade gatekeeper, could buy all the New World requirements at one go. All our wines that we have in a portfolio, we've only got about 20 suppliers. Every single wine is in bond in the UK, so any of the indies that we work with can buy any single product at any time from us as a one-stop shop. In the last 7 years since I joined, we've sort of flipped, particularly the last 3 years, and particularly the last 2 years, we've flipped into very much dominant sales percentage by the multiple sector. And that's really where my skill set comes in, having worked from companies like Blossom Hill to Moet, via working with Kim Milne on international wine services, the original flying winemaker, let's say. And in fact, I think we'll come on to talk about it later, we've taken on 2 wineries, which again, small case studies, Burnham, and then this last few months, Cable Vale, and just about to sign another Australian winery, but I know we can talk about that in more detail. So, but the multiple sector is big news for us, and we sell almost nothing in RSP terms below £10. So we are at the margin of the margin of the margin. When I was at Moet, all my phone calls are answered. When you work for a smaller business, there's only 10 of us. Phone calls don't get answered. You have to be a bit more creative in contacting gatekeepers.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, David. Can I Matt, can I come to you next in terms of talk us through Beyond Wines?
Well, we're really new, so we haven't had 7 years yet. We've only had a year. Our business model's slightly different to the previous two. So it was always our intention to create a consumer-led brand, a pillar brand straight away, but then also support that with the agency business as well. We don't have any Australian producers on our books at the moment, and we are actively looking. And yeah, I haven't got as much to say as you guys have because we're so new. But we work in the multiple sector. We work in the on trade. We don't supply direct to the independents. We don't supply direct to the white tablecloth business or restaurant trade. We will use wholesalers for that as well. We have a team of 5 now, having recruited 3 people in the last 10 months. And that's about it for now.
Yeah, but as you say, you only started actually during last summer, so you actually
we started during the middle of a pandemic, which Alex thought was a fantastic idea. I wasn't at the time. I was quite happy selling 1 million+ bottles of Romanian wine, as you know, Richard, and plodding along quite happily. So, but Alex thought it would be a great idea to do something a bit bonkers. Within 3 months, we created Liquid Diamond, which is amazing, and we've already got listings for that, which is great. So the majority of my time is spent focusing on Romania, the operational side, and trying to get new partners to work with. We'll never take more than 15 partners. That's our key number. We want to really focus well with these people. That's the plan ongoing, and that won't change because I've seen firsthand when you take too many and you can't look after those people properly, and that's imperative to our business model.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, already we've heard from three quite different business models. We're now going to hear from a fourth. And Jamie, you've also started your company within the last year, and have a very different approach to potentially bringing wineries into the UK.
We do, yeah. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, we are coming up to our first birthday next month, technically. Or this month, in fact. No, this is our birthday. Happy birthday to us.
Happy birthday.
So we started right in the middle of the pandemic, but almost in answer to the pandemic, because we saw a bottleneck that was already fairly pronounced before COVID and before Brexit, where really interesting boutique producers found it extremely hard to get into the UK because they had to get in line to speak to the usual suspects, to speak to the Bibendums and Anotrias and so on. And the chances are Bibendum had 3 of what they were already offering. And if they were going to get listed, it meant probably kicking out one of their neighbours. And politically speaking, just not a happy scenario. As the pandemic bit, as we all know, the independent retail volumes soared, and the retailers were craving new and interesting and potentially more challenging, quirky wines for their growing, demanding customer base. But at the same time, the wholesalers were playing it safe, understandably, or closing altogether. We had lots of producers starting to get in, and we just thought, right, well, let's do the walls and wheels bit, which was missing from my previous consultancy, which was much more of a matchmaking proposition, and get the guys, get the producers straight into retail on a consultancy basis rather than a wholesale basis. So they own the stock while it's in the UK. They pay us a fixed retainer per month per SKU, but we price up the wines as if we were the agent. So that means all the usual cogs, including a virtual wholesale margin, are added to the wine. The reason being that we've been described as a disruptive incubator, which is much nicer than it actually sounds, because our intention is to help those producers bridge that gap, basically to go from zero to hero over 12 to 18 months. And then they have the choice to either transition to a normal agent, or they can stay with us, or we can help the top retailers by volume to become their de facto agents. So we kind of go to help them from being no one to a conversation in 12 months' time where they're hopefully doing 100, 150 cases into the independent, which is a totally different conversation to have with a wholesaler. So while they're with us, that wholesale margin goes back to them entirely uncapped. But of course, it's in the pricing, it's in the market pricing, so that when we start a conversation with a wholesaler, everything that they need from a conventional wholesaling margin point of view is already baked in. So there's no interruption to pricing, which would undo all the good work we've done the previous year. Working very well. We've got now 22 producers. We've been able to really ramp up stock to deal with all the issues that we're all dealing with at the moment in terms of transport and so on, which is a great advantage over.
You're a popular man, Chief.
So yeah, it's all right.
They've ended them online too.
Thought I'd turn that off. So yeah, it's working very well. The retailers love it. The nature of the concept means that we're constantly bringing on new things. And because our risk appetite is sort of higher, healthier, we can go for much quirkier things. So New Zealand Sauvignon or RG Malbec that comes along and Prosecco, which is probably not interesting. But we're talking to China at the moment. We're talking to Syria. We're talking to the Lebanon. We're talking to Canada. We're talking to Bolivia, as well as doing weird and wonderful things with Movi in Chile and so on. So it means from the retailer's point of view, there's a constantly evolving source of quite quirky, unique things, which is going down well so far.
Excellent. All right. Well, it's fascinating that I'd say of the four different suppliers, you all have quite different ways of working. I mean, ultimately, you're all trying to get listings in key retailers or key restaurant accounts, but there's different ways of doing it. Perhaps we should just cut to the chase and ask you. I mean, when you are looking to take on a new producer, and I know you've all quite identified that the need to find the right producer as opposed to having lots of producers. So I suppose the need is even more important. Perhaps I could come to you, David. I mean, like when you're, with Seckford, you mentioned what the 15, 16 is your kind of like cut-off point. I mean, what would make it important for you to take somebody on, and what are the key things that you look for?
Yeah, I mean, we're blessed to have at least one approach a week from potential exporters, because about 2/3 of what we do is South Africa, and then the rest is split between Australia and New Zealand. So it tends to come from those three countries. So I think you touched on it in the intro, Richard. These days it's all about emails, let's say. Quite quickly, there's 2 or 3 things. One, have they done the research on Seckford? Do they know what's in our portfolio? Are they trying to sell us the same? When I would approach, if I were to approach Waitrose or Tesco, I wouldn't try and work with them on the same thing that they already have. So have they done the research on Seckford? Do they understand our portfolio? Have they worked in the UK market before? Are they clear on what they want to achieve? You've got these 3 other amazing business models that we colleagues on the call today have just explained. So often, if it's not for me, I'll just say, look, try speak to Kim or speak to somebody else because it's not for Seckford. So then immediately think they're on the back foot. So the ones that stand out, do they understand the supply chain? And Richard, you know me, I've sort of presented on supply chains for the last 20 years. I always get the boring slot, the supply chain slot, but I am quite passionate about supply chains, and now it's all sexy in vogue, isn't it? But I speak to a South African supplier today. It's 6 months for they've got 6 months lead time on screw caps, etc., etc. So that first email, do they want to work in the UK? Do they understand what they want to do? Are they product led? As in, these are our products, we want to sell them, or are we market led? Please help us. We'll change our model to produce Malbec, etc., etc. As Jamie said, the sort of the mainstream products. And quickly in that email, you get a feel for, have they done the research? Have they got expertise, and are they the classic? Are they prepared to listen? I get a lot of potential suppliers, some existing suppliers actually, who try and helpfully tell me how to sell into the supermarkets. I need advice. I've only been in the business 37 years, but I do need more advice. Pippa and I together have been in 70 years, so being told how to do things sometimes can come across the wrong way. Advice, innovation, disruptive innovators is exciting, but our model is the most traditional of the 4 models here, I would say. So we're not trying to produce a Tesla. We're trying to sell amazing wines to great producers, from great producers to retailers who trust me. That the brand is really David Cartwright and Pippa Woods. So whatever we take on has got to share our values. So,
and I guess you just say that the idea that perhaps a wine or a producer that's doing very well in the domestic market is potentially an assumption that it can also do very well in an export market. And I guess that's an important lesson to learn, that you need to almost like start from scratch to some extent and understand what you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, again, it sounds really, I mean, I want to be selling Australian Vermentino, Grenache and Tempranillo and Grenache Gris, but actually 50% of all Australian wines are Chardonnay or Shiraz. So Chardonnay's never gone out of fashion. You know, they do quite well with it in Burgundy, although to that point, you know, obviously Burgundy having problems now. So there's always opportunities. Around. So a bit of research before that first email will reap massive dividends.
Okay, great. Well, I think we'll go on and actually ask about specific opportunities that people can perhaps highlight later in the session. Kim, can I ask you, I mean, when I imagine you're also being approached as well by different producers. What is it for you that makes you want to take somebody on? What
yeah, I echo a lot of what David said. It's a bit like when a job hunter person targets you and they know nothing about your business, and we've actually made it really easy for people in updating our website recently to basically tell everybody about what we're doing, and we've actually updated it in a way so that producers understand a bit more about our route to market and our model and what we do. So to get an email out of the blue that doesn't really look like they've done any research, it usually goes in the delete bin straight away, and doesn't usually even warrant a reply. But again, the same with me, I echo everything that David said, is like the research and just looking at where the gaps are in our portfolio. Like, I don't need somebody to offer me more stuff, you know, as a big bulk player from Australia. I've got that with De Bordesley, but where I need people to look at is where the gaps where they don't have and what we can do outside of that, and vice versa with all other countries as well. I think also looking at the route to market. So where do they want their brand to be? How do they want it to be positioned? What's their expectations? And that's probably one of the first questions we ask anybody that we go to the first stage with is, you know, what are your expectations of the UK market? And if they're wildly out of what we know we can do, usually that's, again, we either have to manage them or it's the end of a conversation. So I think that's a really big thing. And then a really big thing for me as well is that true partnership side of things. So first impressions are huge. So for us, having a charismatic, knowledgeable point of contact between us and the winery, or somebody at the winery, whether it's, you know, owner, founder, whatever it is, makes a massive difference as well. And, you know, the UK market works at massive speed and pace, like every other market does. So we need to work with people that are quick and want to work with us and don't drag their heels with things. So yeah, a lot of it is what David said. And then the other bit is just the basics as well. Like, I can't tell you how many producers that we've had in the past that just can't even supply bottle shots and a standard toolkit and stuff that you just want, like imagery just for your website. And now more, especially coming out of COVID, digital marketing is massive. Everyone's changed the way that they're doing stuff. So just having social media platforms and, you know, websites and everything. And it's all great. You know, if they don't have it, we can help them with that. We've got the skills to do that. We've done stuff like that with La Giosa, who we work with, which is a huge Prosecco brand. We manage their UK social media for them, but it's a case of having the funds to do that and say, yes, we do want to do it. That's, you know, we're really serious about the UK market. That's what we want to do. So yeah, that'd be the big thing. And then the other bit would be around, there's nothing worse when you get into the conversation, it looks going great, and they're from Australia and they say, we want to give you 30-day payment terms. And you're like, it takes, I like the chuckle there, but yeah, it takes like 60 days to get here, probably 120 with what we're going through at the moment. Then you've got probably a month in bond until you get sold out to customers. And then most customers are going to be on 60 days month end, or 30 days month end, sorry. I nearly talked myself into something there. Yeah, I was like, oh God, I'll get in trouble. My finance director will kill me. 30 days month end. So really it's about, we try and manage that when we first start have the conversation, that we ask for a year of extended payment terms, and then we go down to the usual standard for what we want for deep sea. So again, they're really simple things, but you need to be aware of it. At the end of the day, it's their brand. We're here to, you know, as agents and distributors, we're here to offer value and a service. We're not here to fund their brand for them. We're here to deliver it and get it on the shelf, but not here to fund it for them. So, and give all that market insight as well. That's the bit we pay for, is the resource that you get of the people that are here in the UK that gets your product onto shelf.
That's Kim. That's really, really great. And thanks for that. Those real sort of like brass tack advice. I think that's what we really want to try and get across this morning. Matt, can I come to you? I mean, I know you're with your experience as well, working in
absolutely. So David covered off a lot there brilliantly, and then Kim's just filled in the gaps. So they've left me with next to nothing to say. I'm gonna focus on the bit you said, Kim, about the relationship. You both mentioned relationship. To me, I can pretty much work out if I'm going to work with somebody after the first conversation. You know, they've got to not only understand the UK market, but they've got to be personable. They've got to really want to do this. You know, I get so many emails with, oh, look, our award-winning wine, isn't it amazing? And they haven't done their research and they haven't looked at it. And then you have a conversation with them, they're banging on about how great their wine is. Yeah, that's fine, but we need lots more than that. We need to, you know, everything you guys have said on top of your award-winning wine, basically. I can't add anything else to what you two have said, really.
I suppose for me, it's almost like saying that having a good quality wine is a given, really. I mean, you wouldn't
absolutely, yeah, of course. And we expect that as a bare minimum now, don't we? I mean, that is a given.
I think there's one thing we probably haven't touched on, is like knowing where your point of difference is and where your place is in the market. Because just saying, as what Matt said, again, I get numerous emails of, look at all these medals and award winning, but there's nothing different. Medals don't get you on shelf. It's about what you have with that and everything that comes with it. So again, knowing what your clear USPs are and what your route to market is and where you want that to go, that's really important too.
And being very realistic about the expectations for the UK. Do move quickly. We also know that certain retailers move very slowly. So a ranging window for the co-op, for example, would be X date next year at some point. And you know, I know for a fact a lot of these suppliers just don't get that at all. They think we can talk to Tesco, Sainsbury's whenever. We don't have that option. It is down to them. So they need to understand that from the outset as well.
The other thing, Matt, wasn't it? I think you said to me before off air, Matt, was about sustainability protocols. That seems to be, I meant to mention that, but Matt said that before. You know, it's even with existing well-established suppliers, this is coming at us very fast for the right reasons, and we all know that. But saying you're doing something and doing something and being seen to do something and seeing as part of your DNA of your business is really critical. And Tesco spent a lot of time on this on their last supplier call about 3 months ago. And I've never been on a call with Tesco where they spent so long on sustainability. So there's more than one game in town, I know, but if they're now pushing that as the front part of their agenda, then everyone else will be pretty much on that. So, and
sorry, David, there are suppliers who are tacking that on and going, oh, look, aren't we sustainable? Yeah. You can see through that straight away in the bottom.
It's got to be at the core and the DNA of the company, definitely. And vegan is another really big thing of that as well. Like, I think people underestimate the whole vegan thing here in the UK. And I mean, what's great is I've got suppliers actually coming to me and saying, we're looking at lots of different sustainability things. What are the best things we should do for the UK market? Or, you know, what should we do that encompasses everything that we do, whether that's B Corp, whether it's fair trade, whether it's, you know, various different things. And that's great as well when people actually come to us for advice and just don't go off and do their own thing. They come to us and ask us what is right for the UK market, because as David said, you know, it really is very much high on the agenda of everybody at the moment. So I think that's a really big thing. And then the other bit as well that we should add is about accreditations and quality and QA. So I cannot tell you how frustrating it is if a winery doesn't even have HACCP. And my technical manager will absolutely just kill me if I bring on any amazing winery without any technical accreditations. So if you haven't got them, fine, but as long as you're willing to work and know what the UK market needs from that. So not everybody needs to have BRC or IFS or whatever it is that's there, but you know, some form of looking of what they're going to do so that you can build that together. That's another really big thing as well.
It's a really valid point, Kim, because as we all know, without saying any names, there's certain retailers that won't even look at you if you haven't got those accreditations. And when this isn't Australia necessarily, but looking at Central Europe, Eastern Europe, I work with several different wineries. They don't have it. They don't understand why they have to have it. They need it if they're going to work in with certain retailers. End of. It's no discussion.
Brilliant. Okay, well that's great, and it's brilliant that you're having that conversation between the three of you is really, really fantastic in terms of like knowing each other's issues and then how to solve them. Jamie, you've been very patient there.
No,
I mean, you've obviously gone from like 0 producers in your business a year ago to what did you say, 26 or 20?
Yeah, 23 now. Yeah, and growing.
So you've clearly gone through quite a few, you know, a hit parade of trying to work out who's right for you. But your business model clearly means that you need to be working exactly with the right people for you to be able to be in business. So can you give us an idea of the kind of the criteria that you go to when you're choosing a producer?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wine itself has got to be great, and that is a given, but it's not necessarily a given, because some producers will feel that their style is completely amazing, and perhaps it's technically correct, but it's just not right for the market, or you know, they may actually be quite faulty wines, or just very boring wines. The packaging has got to be great, because you know, no matter how much knowledge there is or isn't amongst the indie customer base, the majority buy with their eyes still, be that a classic presentation or a really striking contemporary one. And the pricing's got to be realistic. We have the advantage in that we can modify the margin completely, because we're not margin driven, it's for the producer. But equally, we need to set that product up for the long term. So if there isn't a margin in there, then they will always be with us, because they can't sustain that with a regular wholesaler. So it is sometimes you know, a bit of a shock, and not least to some Australian producers we're talking to at the moment, when we do quite a detailed spreadsheet to say, right, X seller plus shipping plus RH&D plus duty plus retailer margin plus VAT, wholesaler margin plus retailer margin plus VAT, your $10 bottle of wine is going to be 21 quid on the shelf. And they go, oh my God, really? Yeah, because there's 55% of margin in there plus VAT and duty. And that's crucial. I mean, if we then benchmark it, we've got a wonderful lady who does all our category analysis and benchmarks against the market. And we say, listen, this won't fly at 21 quid. It will fly at 17.99, because look at the peer group. And if there's some modification in that X seller, or an acceptance that the wholesale margin might be a bit lower initially, then fine, then we can make it work. But if we can't make it work, then you know, they're paying us to do a job for us. And just as no wholesaler would want to buy stock that they know they're going to have trouble selling, we don't want to take on anyone who we're going to disappoint. So that's super crucial. And I must say, actually, some of the French producers, particularly the Bordelais, who've sent us some things that we haven't been too sort of impressed with, have taken great exception to our comments, and you know, one got very, very offended, and it was I'm super diplomatic, and I tried my best, but he got really peeved. However, in stark contrast, there's an Australian group who we're working with at the moment, quite a large winery based in Victoria, who approached us with a view to the regular Propeller process, and we tasted the wines, and we said, you know what, they're just not very good. But the pricing is amazing, but they're just not very good. This was, you know, there were some highs and lows, but generally speaking, it wasn't workable. And their reaction wasn't actually to be annoyed or just offended and just disappear. They said, do you know what? Let's just grab this by the nettle, or grab the nettle, whatever you know, grab it by the jaffers, and let's be pragmatic about this and say, right, let's do, and we're assembling the wines now. Let's look at, with Elaine's help, my category analyst, we looked at the peer group across the supermarkets and the key indies within their price categories. We're pulling together examples of those wines, which we're then going to send over to Oz, and we're all going to taste simultaneously, more or less, depending on how we do it with the time difference. And we're going to shape their range together, because they say, listen, you understand the UK market. These wines are going gangbusters in other markets, but we can see why they don't work here. Right. So let's, you know, start from scratch. And that's, you know, it's going to be a long-term project and great fun for all of us. But it was more the refreshing pragmatism with which they approached the process. It was like, wow, okay, you guys really you get it. You've got humility. You've got the desire to turn the dial. Let's do some work together. So that's very
interesting, actually. That. Because I think often countries or producers often look at their own peers in their own country to take the cues from them. Whereas, I mean, David, can I perhaps ask you this? I mean, your advice there about, looking at the global wine market or the global New World market, or where your wine might sit versus another country versus a region in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah, it's a great question. And just Jamie's points, pricing and packaging, just absolutely spot on. So it's a really brilliant little piece there. Thanks, Jamie. I mean, the problem, I suppose, we're not quite as analytical as Jamie's just sort of illuminated us with. But so we're quite simple. We say, right, it's South African. Look, we've got two wineries one's called Rustenburg, one's called Canon Cop. If they're as good as them / better, same price, you're in the portfolio tomorrow. I'm sort of slightly cutting it down a bit. And in Australia, we've got, we're working with people like Molly-Duca, and working with people like Bird in Hand and what have you. So we sort of almost let the producer work, if they can see that they've done the work that Kim was saying, right, we know that they work with Molly-Duca, Bird in Hand, right, that's the standard they've got to set. And with a bit of internet savvy work, you can see what the price points are, and so just Jamie said, you've got the spreadsheets to work it out. But and again, I can't really overstress the supply chain side of things, because the charismatic leader we need, and they can influence the businesses that actually we want to work with. But actually, building on what Jamie said, they don't get supply chain. So we're saying, look, this is what it looks like. We had just in time as a theory. The theory has now gone from just in time to just in case, and that's a mental and a structural and a cultural challenge, and a change in business thinking that is here to stay. Supply chains are now, for the next 18 months, are going to be massively stretched. There's only 120 shipyards. There was 300 shipyards 12 years ago, so they ain't building any more ships anytime soon. So all those ships off Los Angeles means they're not going to, Auckland or Cape Town or wherever.
Yeah. Kim, can I just pick up on that point about when you're advising your potential producers about looking at the UK market in general, rather than necessarily looking at their own country? Is that something that you do, or is that something I'm just...
Yeah, no, we would. And I think what's different about the UK market is yes, we're a wine producing country, but it's very small in comparison to everything else that we consume here from a wine point of view. Whereas Australia and New Zealand, it will be very domestic market led and what they do. So for me, yeah, very much so. The first thing we will do, so if somebody came to us, the first thing we would do is ask for samples before we even went into a commercial conversation, because I like to look at wines before even looking at prices and just see where they sit, and then we would benchmark against others. So we're about to take on a new Argentinian producer, so we went out and bought the benchmark, got the samples over, and then have done a similar thing that, their particular Malbec does really great in other markets, but it wasn't quite hitting what the UK market was, although that was quite an interesting tasting, because I still don't really know what the consumer's palate is for Malbec, because they're so different over here. But so we did that, and we've tweaked certain bits. And then also packaging, their packaging wasn't quite right for us, so again, we've been able to say, look, let's delay the launch until January, let's make sure we get it completely right, so we're coming into the market at the right thing. And they've been amazing with that. And that's where, for me, the really big thing is about a true partnership. I can categorically say, and Matt will probably be very similar in 7 years when he gets to 7 years, in saying that my business would not be where it is now without the amazing producer partners that I've got on board. And that's because we have a proper partnership, and they almost become part of your family. And that's where they have to understand everything within your business, but also the market. But that's our job as well, to help them understand that. But yeah, I think definitely for me, the benchmarking thing is really important, and getting them to benchmark as well, because every winery is always going to think their wines are the best that they're ever showing, and they could be, or they could just be tweaked quite slightly with a little bit of, I'm no winemaker, but I know how to taste commercially, and I know what the market wants, and there's just these little tweaks that can happen that it doesn't have to offend a winemaker. It's just a slightly different style for what the UK consumer wants. So yeah, benchmarking is critical. We have to do it. David and the guys on here will tell you, you go off to a buying trip, and if you haven't benchmarked, yeah, that's a rap on the knuckles straight away with a buyer if you haven't benchmarked before. So we have to do it. So no reason why they shouldn't do it,
And Matt, for you, benchmarking, and I know obviously you work with Crama Rekas in Romania, who hit so many different touch points in the UK market.
That's given us a really good insight into what different markets want, both within the UK and globally. I mean, his model is phenomenal in that he's taken a winemaker from Australia and a winemaker from Spain and brought them over to Romania 6 months a year. And that winemaker from Australia works for Casella. So he knows how to produce wines in volume at a consistent level and a consistent style. What's great for me is that I then get to taste all these different varietals, and they're phenomenal examples. So that's good from a skill set side for me, and in terms of when I'm looking at other suppliers. What did you actually ask?
That's okay, don't worry. Well, I just say we've got 5 minutes. Okay, I'll give you this one first. We've got 5 minutes to go. So in terms of where the opportunities are at the moment, I mean, we hear a lot about the problems there are and where there are difficulties, but in terms of where you think there are gaps in the market at the moment for wines potentially from Australia and New Zealand, where do you think people should be concentrating their efforts at, and price points or styles?
Alternative
Matthew, you go
Sorry,
first.
so somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was David actually, 50% of the market's Chardonnay and Shiraz, and absolutely that's right. The big boys dominate those two varietals, obviously, and at certain price points. We know that, we don't have to go over that again, but that you're never going to crack that £5 to £7 point when you've got Accolade and so on and so forth. I always think, and I do believe this is happening, there are people, the retailers and more importantly, the consumers are looking for more esoteric styles. The 18 to 35-year-old in particular is our target market. We're losing that consumer to other drinks. We know that. Let's get them back by making it more interesting. So, your Grenaches, your whatever that isn't Chardonnay and Shiraz, for me, I think it's a good opportunity.
Point of difference.
Percentage of the market. That doesn't mean we wouldn't look at the Chardonnay Shiraz at 8, 10, 11, 12 pounds, because we're not stupid. We need to sell wine. But I think looking at esoteric varietals is definitely a way forwards.
Totally agree.
Okay, I'm just aware we've got about 4 minutes left. So if you could just do, say, 30 seconds each, if I could ask Jamie, what would you say the gaps are?
Esoterica for sure, but alternative packaging. So think cans, think bib, think other formats. Sustainable, but also about the lifestyle steps, stages in which they're going to be consumed, because that 18 to 35 bracket are drinking very, very differently now.
Excellent. And Kim, for yourself?
Yeah, similar for us, everything that the guys have said. I think one thing that's been really positive out of COVID is there is a trade up and people are looking to experiment. Certain retailers are bringing in parcels where you can look at, Australian Mediterranean varietals. You can look at all sorts of different things. I think things like Italy's done really well with like a Passamento styles. There's no reason why Australia can't do similar things. And likewise, obviously New Zealand is a little bit tricky at the moment with the vintage. Just getting our hands on anything would be brilliant. So but definitely that trade up. Look at that trade up side of things. I think none of us that are on this call are in that kind of £5 to £7 bracket of the market. We're all here to look at the slightly more premium side of things. So yeah, definitely look at that.
David, for yourself?
Yeah, £10 plus is he's up 65% in the last 12 months. So that's fantastic. I mean, think pink. So I didn't mean to, that's all puns intended. Think pink, sparkling, and also low and light alcohol wines, authentic, high quality, critical in that sector.
Low rather than no, I think, is the general vibe as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. I mean, it's been a rattling around. We could probably talk for another 45 minutes, but appreciate all your expertise and thank you very much for being so really going to the kind of the nitty gritty, the detail around, as you say, the accreditations, around packaging, around some of the real sort of like stumbling blocks that I know producers sometimes don't always think about, and it goes way away beyond just the wine itself. So thanks for all those for watching, and really great to be part of this new platform, and we wish this event a great success, and please follow up with the four producers if you're interested in any more details. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Richard.
Cheers,
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.